Hello and welcome to the Smart Academy at the Smart Family of Cooling Products. Today it's my privilege to do a walkthrough video on our SMT121Q air handler, or our 120-ton industrial air handling unit. When we say a unit is industrial, what that means to us in this portable application is that this unit is high static, meaning it can generate a lot of force with the blower, push the air very, very far. This unit is a high TD, or temperature difference, or temperature drop model. We can take very, very high air, 95, 100 degrees, and drop it down 35, 40, even 45 degrees. Lastly, we say this unit is industrial because it was built from the ground up for the portable or rental application. Okay. Now, before we get started and we go through the startup steps on this unit, we want to talk about safety. At Smart Family, our job always begins and it should end with safety. And everyone out there watching this, we want you to be safe out there as well. Okay. So first and foremost, let's talk about electrical safety. This unit here is provided with a unit circuit breaker or unit disconnect. However, electrical disconnect means upstream of this unit circuit breaker is your responsibility if you're setting up the job. Now, there's lots of different means of electrical safety or electrical protection upstream of this unit. That could be a circuit breaker and an MCC, it could be fuses, you could have an I-line panel with circuit breakers, or it could even be a circuit breaker on a generator. However, please note, electrical protection upstream of the unit circuit breaker is your responsibility. Okay. Number two, personal protective equipment. Again, we want you to be safe out there. I'm going to go through the minimum PPE requirements used at Smart Family. What we would ask you is look at your company standards, the job site standards, or use ours for reference, and whichever is the most conservative, use those as your standard moving forward. At Smart Family, our minimum PPE requirements when starting up this type of package is going to be a hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, appropriate gloves for the job you're doing, a vest or reflective clothing, and steel-toed shoes. Again, that's our minimum standard. Lastly, when we're talking about safety, although we hope you get a lot out of these startup videos, this startup video is not certification. We're not certifying you to be able to work on this equipment in this video. This is just for informational purposes only to help you out in the field. Okay, great. Now that we've handled safety, let's go through the startup steps on starting up our 120-ton industrial high-static air handling unit. For most Smart Family gear, there's a 5-step process that we use when we're doing a startup on these machines. So I'm going to go through that with you now. Step number one, when you receive the unit, you want to walk around the package and inspect the unit from top to bottom. You want to make sure that there's no damage, that there's no dings, that there's nothing wrong, doors missing, and you want to note any damage and let whoever you rent this unit from know immediately so you're not charged for that damage. We also want to look for damage to make sure that the unit won't damage itself when it goes and it runs, okay? On the job site, as we're doing our inspection, we also want to make sure that the unit is mounted or set on level ground. And please note that these units typically have fork pockets with marked center of gravity and then overhead lifting points, okay? All right, so when we receive the unit, step number one, we walk all the way around the package and we inspect the unit for damage. We've done that. Step number two, we need to make sure that this air handler has a clear and clean path for the airflow to get through the machine. So to allow airflow to go through the machine, we need to make sure that our inlets are open and our outlets are open. So follow me now as we walk around the package and let's go open up our inlet connections. You'll see as we walk past our fluid connections here, nothing's hooked up. We talk about connecting the unit, the fluid side, and filling it with fluid, water or propylene glycol, in another video, okay? So pay attention to that video. But step number two is making sure we have a clean and clear air path for this air handler. So we're going to open up our inlet connections. These are also referred to as return air connections. You'll see on Smart Family units, we typically put an in tag so you know exactly where the air inlet is supposed to be. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to open up each of our duct doors here. On our 120-ton model unit, you'll see that there are 4 duct connections. And typically, you want to have all of your inlets or all of your return entering air duct connections open. And that's because we never want to starve the unit. This particular model and most Smart Family models, you can run open to the ambient or outside air, or you could duct return air ducts and run return air from the space, or you can run a mixture. That's totally dependent upon the job site application. Okay? So we opened up our 4 inlets. Now we'll go to the outlet side of the package. On this particular model, we have 3 outlets, 2 on this side of the unit, 1 on the other. Whether we open 1, 2, or 3 ducts is going to depend upon the application, how much airflow we need at the job site or the job site layout. For this little tester, I'm going to open up 2 supply or outlet connections. You'll notice that they're clearly marked out, so you know which ones are the outlets. On this package, typically you're going to run a minimum of 2 connections, okay? But again, the job site dictates that. All right? So step number 2, we have a clear path of air for this unit. We've opened up the correct amount of inlets and the correct amount of outlets or supplies. Step number 3 is we need to inspect our filters. We have inlet filters on all SMT model air handlers. There's 2 ways that we can inspect those filters. If we open up our return connections, we see we have nice access to all of our filters here. When leaving Smart Family, you typically get washable polyester media wrapped in an aluminum frame for all of our filters. So what that means is these filters can be washed, let to dry, and put back in several times on the package before the media or the filters needs to be replaced. We can also access the filter section on the door right here, and you'll notice typically there's a tag on the filter door that tells you filter access here and or the part number for the filters that are used in this particular unit. If I open up our filter access door, you'll see I have a filter stop and then I have access to our filters. Okay? We already said our filters are nice, clean, white, ready to run. 4, we want to inspect our drain pan. So if we come in and we look inside, we see that our stainless steel drain pan is very, very nice, clean, nothing's in there. I said in the beginning of this video that this is a high static model. We can generate a lot of force behind the air that we're going to be delivering to the job site. Well, because we have a lot of positive pressure, positive force here, we're going to have a lot of suction on the inlet side of the blower. So we never want to leave anything in that drain pan that could get sucked in there. Sometimes people will leave things in here, so as a standard we always go in and check and make sure the drain pan is clean. As we're looking at the drain pan, we could see the drain at the bottom there, and then we actually have a condensate outlet or drain outlet connection. Our particular connection is normally inside the base so that it's protected from damage. If this was on a job site, after I inspected the drain pan, I would typically hook up my condensate lines if I didn't want to pool water where the unit was and direct that to a drain or wherever I wanted that condensate to pool. Okay? So we've gone through our normal 4 startup steps. The 5th and final step is actually going through and starting up the package. So let me walk you task by task through everything we're going to do to go ahead and start up the package. This particular model has Series 16 cam lock connections here. You can tell very clearly that this is a 460 volt unit because we have 460 volt color coded cam locks, meaning brown, orange, yellow, and then our green. I could also tell what voltage this machine is by looking at the nameplate and or our generator tag. So we typically have tagging on this packages that tell you exactly what the power requirements are, how many amps this unit will draw, and what we minimum generator size to be if this was running on portable generator power. Okay, putting the correct power to the machine, that's your responsibility. We've done that here. Okay, when we're ready to run, I want to make sure that my control power switch is off and my airflow switch is off, because I only want to get control power and run the blower to generate airflow when I'm ready for it. So both of those are in the off position. Briefly here, I'm also checking my e-stop just to make sure that that isn't depressed. And when we get running, I'll show you here that all of our lights are pushed to test lights, so you can actually push these LED lights in to make sure that they're functioning properly. So we're ready to go for a start, so I'm going to turn my unit circuit breaker from off to the on position. As soon as you grant this unit power, you will notice that the incorrect power light comes on. That's normal, that's standard. The reason for that is we have a phase monitor on this particular machine that's relatively sophisticated, and it has a startup delay. So we don't want to immediately run motors on any rental gear. So what that means is we have a time delay on our phase monitor that does not grant us power until that timer has gone off. You'll see the timer's gone off and the incorrect power light is off. Okay? Please be mindful that phase monitor is also an over and under voltage relay monitor. So if you don't give the exact power that this machine is asking for, plus or minus some tolerance, the incorrect power light will remain on. So you need to give good correct power to the unit. Now I'm ready to go ahead and grant this unit 110 volt control power to all the controls. So I'm going to turn my control power switch to on. You'll see immediately I get a control power light. And finally, I'm ready to turn the airflow from the off to the on position. When I do this, we should hear the blower starting, and depending upon which switch I'm running, if I'm on VFD mode or bypass mode, that corresponding light will come on. So I turn my airflow switch to the on position. I can already hear that blower starting to spin and start to generate some airflow, and you'll see my VFD light came on. Currently, this blower is in minimum position. That's typically where we want to start all air handling units and package units. We don't want to have so much force behind the air. But I can see even at minimum, you can see my sleeve. We're generating quite a bit of static pressure. Okay? The next step will be to adjust the speed potentiometer or the blower speed pot if we're running in VFD mode to the correct airflow and static pressure that the job site requires. So I'll go adjust this a little bit higher. I'll let you see the difference here on the discharge of the machine when I adjust that speed pot and give us a little bit more frequency and turn that blower a little bit faster. So now we've cranked up the speed pot, we've increased our airflow and our static pressure of this machine. What's unique about this particular machine is this unit will generate more than 10 inches of total static pressure. So this is a very, very high static model. I'm going to turn it down so you can hear me again. So that's it. Our air handler has been successfully started up, and we've ramped it up to the airflow and static pressure the job requires. Now let me go through those 5 startup steps one more time just so that we have it together. Step number 1, when you receive the unit, inspect it, do a full walk around of the package. Make sure that it's lifted correctly and set in place either with the fork pockets or the overhead lifting points. Step number 2, make sure you have a clear path of airflow through the machine. That means opening up typically all of the return air connections and the correct amount of supply connections. Now obviously you would have your portable ductwork hooked up, but we don't have any hooked up so that you can actually see how the blower is spinning. Step number 3, inspect those filters. Make sure they are white, clean, and ready to run. Step number 4, go ahead into the drain pan cabinet, inspect the drain pan and make sure there's nothing in there that could damage the blower. And step number 5, go through the startup steps we went through. Apply the correct power to the unit. Start the unit with the control power switch in the off position and the airflow switch in the off position. Turn the unit circuit breaker from off to on. Wait for our phase monitor to go through its time delay sequence. Turn control power on. If we get a control power light on, then go ahead and turn the blower or airflow switch in the on position, and then crank up the blower as needed once we start up. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please stay safe out there and stay tuned for more.